Welcome back to Backward Point Podcast. Today's podcast is an emergency podcast, one that we don't really record on a daily basis. This was sort of called upon us by the news, by the media, by the utter shock of what we just witnessed. With me, as always, is my brother and my co host, Bashar Sayed, who's flabbergasted, muted, excited, exasperated. But before anything, I would like to start this podcast with a very insightful quote, one that as the years go by, I just feel like gets more and more relevant and can be applied to any different aspect of life. And the quote is from the famous movie from The Dark Knight. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Bashar Sayed, welcome to the podcast.
Why on a Sunday?
That's not, I mean, that's just irrelevant at this point. At this point, we know for a fact that the PCB has no chill and would love to drop news on Sundays, especially Easter Sunday. Like, it's a holiday for North American diaspora. They're chilling, doing the barbecue, and suddenly they open Quick Info. What is the first thing that they see?
Well, not like this news was not building up. It's been in the news area for the past few days. Shaheen's captaincy going out ever since the PCB chairman mentioned in a press conference that we are not sure who the captain is yet, and we will decide by the end of the Kakul camp. And lo and behold, they went back to have some talks with Babar Azam. And in the press release here, the PCB says, in a strategic move aimed to ensuring player well-being and peak performance, the board overhauled the white ball leadership. Babar, renowned for his brilliant batting record in international cricket, will take over the captaincy from Shaheen Afridi. And the reason behind removing Shaheen, as stated here, is that while Shaheen Afridi has undeniably proven himself as a star fast bowler, leading Pakistan's pace attack over the years, the board recognizes the importance of rotation and rest to maintain his peak performance. Now, it's a lot to unpack here. I don't typically have notes for these emergency podcasts, but just still a structure is needed to take in what's going on. I think when I heard the news, I was in disbelief, despite knowing that the news was building for the past few days. Because truthfully speaking, I didn't think Babar would take it. I thought Babar had moved on from there just because looking back to how Babar was treated by the board, and this is the previous board, obviously, Zak Ashraf, the main culprit there, just the way he treated Babar Azam. During the ODI World Cup, Pakistan is playing the World Cup in India. They're touring India after 7 years, and Pakistan team is, they're on the brinks of qualifying, not qualifying. And here in Pakistan, there's Babar Azam's leaked chats being displayed on your private channel. There's undue pressure being put on Babar, and eventually that leads to Pakistan team losing matches, losing confidence. And then once Babar is back in Pakistan, he is sort of pushed or cornered in a way that he has no choice but to resign. Now, Zak Ashraf then uses Shaheen Afridi as a pawn against Babar Azam. I think what we should do first is just talk about how Babar's tenure was. Was he removed fairly? What were your initial thoughts when that happened back in, I think, November when the World Cup finished?
I think we have a lot of perspective on that event now that the time has passed and we've sort of sat with the consequences of the ODI World Cup in 2023 and its aftermath. I think once you sit back and you sort of look at the pressures that were presented towards Babar Azam and you look at how just the manner of execution of that, fateful decision was, you sort of think about who actually was the main culprit of the downfall of the Pakistan World Cup. I mean, the players obviously play the game and they're on the field, but there is a whole other emotional game that was being played in Pakistan cricket, in the Pakistan board because of the chairman. And we've heard the saying many a times that the fish rots from the head. And just sorry to say it, but Pakistan Cricket Board has not had a stable head in a very, very long time. This is the same week that the late Shahriar Khan passed away, who was the architect, the chief negotiator for Pakistan Cricket Board during the mid 2000s when India was touring Pakistan, when Pakistan was touring India. And he passed away the same week while this whole debacle was sort of being unfolded. And, rest in peace to him. But then you said, go back and you see the dismissal of Babar Azam. Now, we can debate as long as we want on if Babar Azam should have been removed at all from captaincy. Now, I know you have a very different perspective on this. I think that maybe you should have given Babar till the end of this World Cup that's coming in a couple of months. Maybe you don't have a knee jerk reaction and you don't let the media pressure and all that get to you. Back your captain, because there was some glaring mistakes in Babar's captaincy. Maybe he had absolute power when in his tenure. Maybe that was not ideal. A captain should not be coach, selector, team manager, discipliner, captain, friend. Like he can't be wearing 8 or 9 different caps and assuming that one role.
But that was the idea that was presented from Imran Khan, the prime minister of the time, former legendary captain, transferred down to Ramiz. And then that decision was made to empower Babar as a powerful captain.
Yes, but it's the same debate that we have when we're quote unquote hiring foreign coaches. What's the resume? Babar Azam resume is not as chief selector. Babar Azam resume is not as a team discipliner. Babar Azam resume is not, a team manager. There are people in place, however competent or not, for those roles. Now, he should have a big input on who he wants to play. I agree with that. But he cannot make hard and fast decisions like that. I don't know what the depth of Babar and Imad's rivalry or disagreement or whatever you want to call it is, but there has to be an aspect of Babar wanted Nawaz to play over Imad. That's pretty simple. If a captain has absolute power like Babar Azam does, then he chooses which left arm spinner all rounder he gets to play in his team.
There were 3 major changes in the Pakistan team post the 2021 T20 World Cup. And it seemed like 3 senior players were removed from the Pakistan team, being Shoaib Malik, Mohammad Hafiz, and Imad Wasim. And it seemed like Babar wanted to go for a fresh start, build a new team.
Nothing wrong with that.
He trusted Iftikhar Ahmed, he trusted Mohammad Nawaz. And maybe you can see partially why that was so. Babar wanted to have a more fit team. Babar maybe wanted to remove some toxic aspects of the team. So, I mean, Imad's fitness has always been very questionable. I remember the 2019 World Cup. It was, everybody knows this. It was on the news. Inzamam, the selector at the time, spoke about this, that Imad's yo-yo test was not adequate to what the team standards were.
This was
2019. And they made an exception for Imad just because Pakistan needed that kind of a player. Now, I think maybe Babar wanted to have a different team culture. That's also why we saw Azam Khan being ousted from the team after just a few matches initially. So I can see sort of what Babar was trying to do, but his trust or his over-reliance on Nawaz didn't pay out. And time again, minus the game against India where he batted brilliantly in the Asia Cup, we didn't really see him come up and pay off Babar's trust.
So let me rephrase this. Which gamble of Babar Azam's during his tenure paid off, in your opinion?
I think just Babar building the team culture, having a young team, investing into fast bowlers like Haris Rauf, Naseem Shah, making Shaheen Afridi our spearhead. Because I think what Mohammad Amir thought, that we will never find a left arm bowler who can swing the ball in at high pace after he retired, and the Pakistan team would need to come back to him to take his retirement back, which didn't happen. Instead, Amir just became a global league trotter, put on TV to bash the team. I like that aspect of Babar's captaincy. At the same time, there are also glaring issues in his captaincy.
He's non-tactical.
Not tactical. We saw at the one series that Shan Masood captained. Shan's field placings, Shan's decision making they were good. And with an average Pakistan team, Pakistan was very close to winning at least a couple of matches. Like there were some scenarios. We talked to Salman Ali Agha on the Islamabad podcast, and he mentioned that, there were a couple of moments where Pakistan was in the driver's seat. And had they taken those catches, grabbed those opportunities, it could have been a different result. In Babar Azam's captaincy, on the other hand, Pakistan kept losing home series. We were smashed by England. I think even New Zealand came to Pakistan and they beat us in a
They drew
home
the
series.
series.
So Babar's just home test record was terrible. Babar's batting in these big tournaments has been extremely questionable. Barring the 2021 T20 World Cup, Babar's been a massive flop in the tournaments he's played. And those tournaments are the 2022 Asia Cup. Babar scored 68 runs at an average of 11.3 and a strike rate of 108. The 2022 World Cup, T20 World Cup, Babar scored 124 runs at an average of 17.7 and a strike rate of 93.
Didn't he score a 50 in the semifinal?
The 50 is included in those stats.
Oh, okay. Hey, I just asked the questions.
Babar golden duck against India in the T20 World Cup at MCG.
Yeah.
2023 Asia Cup, Babar scored 56 runs in 3 innings. And this is minus the 151 he scored against Nepal.
You don't count that?
I'm counting more important, more critical matches.
Sure.
So
I'm not going to fight for Nepal here.
The couple of games against India, I'm pretty sure one game he didn't bat, one game he flopped. The game against Sri Lanka, he didn't score a lot of runs. And then just the last ODI World Cup in India, Babar finished 27th amongst the top run scorers, which I think is so incredibly sad. Babar is 29 years old, 55 average in ODIs, 90 strike rate, amazing numbers. But for Babar to flop like that at such a big age, at such a big stage, considering this is his prime ODI years, I don't want to bring the Virat Kohli comparison, but there was these 3 years that Virat Kohli was just absolutely untouchable. 2017, 18, 19. I think he notched up like 6, 5, and 5 ODI hundreds every single year. And that was just Virat Kohli just jumping on the rise that he was having and peaking at the right time. I felt like Babar was on that peaking curve. And this ODI World Cup, this last Asia Cup, was supposed to be where Babar comes in, plays incredible match-winning, match-finishing knocks that we're yet to see from Babar, whether it be in T20s or ODIs. I'll go back to one thing. Babar Azam's greatest century till date, arguably, is the one he scored against New Zealand in the ODI World Cup. That's a great Babar Azam innings because he finished the match. He went out, not out. He ensured Pakistan crosses the line. We haven't seen such match-winning, match-finishing, clutch knocks from Babar since. And I think you can argue that Babar's overall stats as captain batting are great. 48 average, 7,000 runs, 18 centuries, whatever. But Babar's numbers in big tournaments and in pressure games, they're lacking. They're not there. So maybe you can argue that, yes, he's a bilateral king, but as a captain, when it comes to big tournaments, his performances are way below par.
Okay, there is merit to that argument. I have to agree with you when it comes to that, because obviously you're giving me numbers, you're backing them up. There's no denying that. I'll just say a sidebar. Babar finishing 27th in the 2023 ODI World Cup physically pains me, because, like you said, that was a World Cup that I was sure that Babar would be top 5 run scorers. I was so sure that I was willing to bet money. I'm so glad I didn't. That if Babar doesn't finish top 5, I think I would be surprised.
No hundreds.
No hundreds. That's the thing it's the most shocking to me, is there no hundreds. Now people will argue, okay, if the New Zealand game had gone all through, maybe there would have been 100. Fine, but still doesn't count because we didn't actually get a full game, and Pakistan won that game anyways from the DLS method. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I agree with you. But again, coming down to captaincy, this is what we're talking about. Babar as a player in knockouts, as a captain, yes, questionable, but you cannot forget the fact that Pakistan went undefeated in the league stage in the 2021 World Cup. Top scorer was Babar Azam.
And then you bottled the tournament.
Did we bottle the tournament, or was this one bad catch?
Well, one bad catch.
One drop catch, and you
poor
lose the
death
game.
bowling. And I think that one over from Hafiz, people keep forgetting that. He bowled a no ball, which went for a 6, and then 13 runs in is over. And then that Pakistan team, like, that was a World Cup that ICC was giving Babar Azam in a plate wrapped up. Here you go, buddy.
Who played
Have
that?
it.
Who played that final, that World Cup?
It was New Zealand versus Australia, and Australia beat them.
Okay.
So Pakistan, we played all of our cricket in the 2010s in the UAE. We knew the conditions. We were kings of those conditions, and we weren't able to lock that World Cup in.
I think that was just one catch drop and then 3 sixes. What are you gonna do?
What about the next Asia Cup? Pakistan goes to
They
the
lose
finals.
against Sri Lanka in the final, right?
They lose back-to-back matches against Sri Lanka, who in the final you had like I think 3 or 4 wickets down in the power play.
Mhm.
You let them score like 160, 170, and then ridiculous knocks from Rizwan and Babar. We weren't able to chase that score, and you lose the Asia Cup final.
But again, the argument comes back to this, Bashar. It's like there seems to be this sort of history for Pakistan cricket that people assume before 2021 we were winning trophies left, right, and center. Was that the case? No. Pakistan became a regular in the playoffs after the captaincy change in 2020. That's just a fact. Now, were we able to finish tournaments or not? It's not a debate. It's a fact. But how that was done could be a debate. If it was efficient, if not efficient, if it was there a different captain on the helm, would we be able to knock those trophies off? I mean, we'll never know. This is a game of if and buts. But we're here mentioning that although Babar Azam was not able to lock in a trophy, on the whole, was he a bad captain?
I think
Trophy or not?
I wasn't able to see tactical evolution from Babar Azam.
Fair.
And the one thing that really bothered me is, like you mentioned, he had a lot of power. He was making the calls. He was picking his team. When Naseem Shah got injured, Pakistan had no bench strength. Like we had to go back to Hassan Ali to call him back. He was bowling like 128, 138 clicks in the World Cup. Was barely effective. And that just sort of pissed me off. Like, you know, a lot of the other teams were without their main players as well. Like Australia they missed Mitch Marsh in a few matches. India lost Hardik Pandya and they still went on to go to the finals. And Babar Azam and team, they just didn't build that bench strength. And one of the reasons why I think that goes back to is just insecurity within the PCB, within the Pakistan team. Naseem Shah, in an interview, mentioned that in Pakistan, there's a lot of conversations around workload management. But when bowlers and players are asked to rest, sometimes they get rest in peace because someone else comes and plays instead of them. They perform, and suddenly they're the main guy, and the guy you rested is out of the team.
That is such a Naseem Shah comment, by the way.
Like that is so sad. That is so disappointing. And this is exactly why you don't see Babar, Rizwan, Shaheen, Naseem resting against series against
C teams.
C teams, minnows. Nepal, Netherlands, you're still seeing Pakistan's A-list team play. And I think those few series where Pakistan, Babar really missed out on building a bench strength. And we didn't have any fast bowlers to go back on.
Do you think in the 6 to 8 months that has transpired since Babar's resignation?
3 months.
Babar's resignation was 3 months ago?
November. The ODI World Cup was in November. December, Jan, Feb, and now we're in March. So it's like 3-4 months.
Jeez, it feels like a year and a half ago.
It feels a long time.
It feels like a long time. Okay, so all right, 4 months. Do you think anything has changed in that aspect? Do we have a bench strength? Do you think we have an Abbas Afridi or who else do we have? Zaman Khan, Wasim Jr. Do you think those people are strong enough to replace Naseem Shah if worst scenario comes in? Do you think the PCB / Shaheen Afridi have sort of in the 4 months developed some sort of backup plan?
Well, Shaheen got 5 matches. And I think the greatest thing that Shaheen did was break the Rizwan Babar opening partnership. As great as it may be, I've talked about this before, statistically, they're probably the best opening pair in T20s. But if you look at the strike rate, and especially in the power play, it's way below par. We are way behind the top teams in the world. And the power play, it's simple cricket. T20s, power play, you maximize the power play, you score as many runs as you can. You don't want to be 38 for 0. You want to be 60 for 2, 55 for 0, 55 for 1, right? And Pakistan just really lacked that impetus up top. And I think with Babar now back and hearing Babar talk about in the post-match press conferences and the PSL that he was personally not happy with batting at 1 down. So does this mean that what Shaheen did in one series, which was having Saim Ayub and Rizwan open, Does Babar go open with Saim, or does Babar open with Rizwan again? And Saim goes one down. Like, what is the impact of Babar coming back?
Yeah, but just before we get to that, I don't think we've sort of rounded out the question of was Babar Azam a good captain?
I think he was average. And like the one thing that bothered me was that there was no evolution in his captaincy. Like he wasn't evolving.
I agree with that. I agree with that. The only thing that sort of that gives me solace about Babar Azam's captaincy is at least he righted a ship. The ship was going nowhere near the end of 2020. Like Safi's captaincy was under danger because Safi himself was not performing as a player. Like no doubts about Safi's captaincy. He was aggressive. He was loud. He made sure that he was a moving captain. He was always busy. Sure, but his spot was in danger because Mohammad Rizwan was such a good keeper slash batsman, waiting in the shadows to come up. That's why Safi got ousted. Now there are theories and propaganda will flow, whatever. And I love a good Karachi agenda, but that's just not it. I don't believe in that.
I
To be
believe
honest.
that Sarfaraz, having led Pakistan to the number one rankings in T20Is, having led Pakistan to 11 consecutive series win, he at least deserved to lead Pakistan in one T20 World Cup. And Babar Azam just continued Sarfaraz's legacy from where Sarfaraz left off. So he sort of got a good team in his hand for the couple of World Cups that he played.
It's the same team now, though. What's changed? Like the team that Sarfraz sort of left off is the same team that Babar inherited, and that those are the same core 8-9 players playing through. So do we attribute the next World Cup to Sarfraz as well?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Like there has to be a Passover period where, okay, yeah, 21 World Cup, maybe Sarfraz's team, but Babar Azam did that. He was a top scorer, wiped the board clean in the league stages, had one 15-minute bad period of T20 cricket, and boom, you lost the semifinals. That team goes on to win the World Cup. Fair enough. You take that L, you move on. 2022 World Cup, not the greatest Pakistan finish ever, but Kudrat Ka Nizam, 1992 reimagined, whatever. Like 2022 should have been it played out so beautifully in the script. If Pakistan had beaten England in that final, it would have been 92 literally repeated, right? So okay, that didn't go through. Whatever. What I'm trying to say is that Pakistan still managed to make playoffs in those World Cups. Where, if you remember 2016 World Cup, T20 World Cup in India, abysmal. 2014, I think we made semifinals.
For
T20 World Cup.
No.
14 we didn't make semifinals. 16 we didn't make semifinals. Was there a World Cup at 18?
No.
No. There was a 19 World Cup, ODI World Cup. Did not make the finals. We make the finals in the 2021 World Cup, or semifinals in the 2021 World Cup. So we make a playoff after, if you take the Champions Trophy out, because that's sort of like a one-off on the side. It is a valid ICC tournament, but I'm just talking World Cups right now. We didn't make a semifinal since 2011, 10 years. Well, that's a very high achievement. And then we make not one semifinal, we make two semifinals one semifinal, one final, and then two Asia Cup finals back to back. That's a big achievement for a team that was supposed to be lackluster, that didn't have any direction. Surely Safi did raise these players into becoming who they were, but to take them to the next step, Babar was able to get the best out of them. The culture that he created, I have to respect that. Like, that was a very wholesome culture. People throw words at it like Dosti 11 and Friendship 11 and all that, but there has to be some sort of belief in your captain that people want to go out there and put themselves out there, like Shaheen did with his hashtag. If you remember, there was a whole little thing there. We've seen multiple mutinies in Pakistan cricket history with captains. Yunus Khan being, I don't know if that's the most recent or not, but Yunus Khan comes to mind. Wasim Akram in the 90s comes to mind. Imran Khan comes to mind. There was a mutiny against him. There was a mutiny against Miyadad as well, I believe, in the 80s.
I think so.
Like, we've seen this time and time again. And Pakistan's history with coups, not only in the leadership, in the political leadership, but in the PCB leadership, this is what happens. So we were just used to that. And this new crop of, cricket fans grew up at a time where this was just not happening like that. And because this is the first time we've seen it in a very long time, it's come as a shock to me. Babar Azam captaincy was average to above average at best. I agree with you. There was no evolution. There should have been evolution. He did not necessarily learn from his mistakes. Some of the mistakes were glaring. One of them comes to mind is where You sort of realized after the second or third game in the World Cup that Haris Rauf is not a power play bowler. You just don't bowl him in the first 10 or first 15. Babar Azam consistently bowled him this eighth or ninth over, where he would go for 15 or 20, and then it would take him the next like two spells just to manage and take back and resuscitate his average back to what it is. And when you're bowling like that, you're bowling defensive. You're not bowling to take wickets. You're bowling to just conserve runs. And so he would get whipped for 60, 65 in 10 with a wicket, maybe. That's a flaw that after the second or third game, you realize this isn't working. You hold off Haris Rauf, you get somebody else.
Also, the way that he batted against him and Rizwan batted against India,
Shocking.
shocking. I mean, in a pitch that seemed that it wasn't doing much in the first few overs.
First 20, 25 was very easy to bat.
They just let Kuldeep Yadav and Jadeja settle in. They took no chances. The offside field was open. There was nobody in the back, and they didn't play any sweep shots. They didn't go inside out. And Hardik Pandya said that we were just satisfied with the way that they were playing singles and doubles, and eventually a collapse just led Pakistan to not have any competitive total.
Which is ironic because one of the viral clips of the recent past was Babar Azam lofted cover drive for 6 and 4. And I was like, where was the shot against India, bro? This is the same delivery right off that Kuldeep was bowling you consistently, and you were just putting it down, not even nudging it for singles. So again, like I said, defensive captaincy, unevolutionary, and definitely glaring mistakes. But the positives were quite high as well. We keep forgetting that. I feel like we get bogged down in the negatives. There were definitely highs that to this day, like I will cherish. 152 for 0, semi-final win in the 2022 Kudrat Ka Nizam, like all of that itself was just, I love that buildup. Now, coming back to now, we come back from the ODI World Cup. We knew there was going to be a reactionary movement from the PCB, from the chairman. And the call was Babar Azam comes to the office. Zakir Ashraf says, we're dropping you from white ball. Please keep red ball. Babar goes out. Babar says, I'll think about it. I think he consults his family or whatever.
I think his dad is
his main consultant, right?
Yeah.
Dad says no. Either you keep all three or you lose it all. He goes into the car. He tweets, I have decided to resign. All right. So his hand was forced. I don't think he wanted to resign as captain, but obviously it was being taken away from him. So he had no choice but to save face. Now, that management is gone. This management is in for at least 3 years, as said by the appointees, whoever they are. This management comes in, they realize that Shaheen is undercooked and he's gone 1 for 4 against New Zealand. He's gone 1 for 8 and 1 in the PSL against, again, a T20 tournament. In the last 4 months, he's lost 12 games, won 2, and R1. He's not the guy to lead Pakistan in the World Cup. Is that a fair call or not?
And also suddenly there's like questions on Shaheen's bowling and his performance and his line of length, which I think is it's weird, man. Pakistan cricket is such a volatile place to be as a player. Like 1 minute you're being in talks to be a captain, and next minute if you're not captain, you're not even in the team. So it's so weird to be. And the way that Shaheen was put up against Babar, and it seemed that there was a perception that Shaheen Afridi backstabbed Babar Azam. But professionally speaking, if you're offered the Pakistan captaincy opportunity, why wouldn't you take it? And firstly, like the decision has to be made. The decision to make Shaheen captain was based off of his Lahore Qalandars heroics. And then again, he was removed after one series and one bad PSL. So is PSL like literally our breeding ground of captains? Like, is that how we assess if you're a good captain or a bad captain? And I just think it's really unfair to Shaheen Afridi. I feel like he's been kept in the dark ever since he came back from New Zealand. He didn't know if he was going to be captain, but he was used by the PCB to bring back Imad, to bring back Amir. Now that they're back, I think Amir might even take Shaheen's place in the playing 11. That's just the overall conversations that are happening within the cricket fraternity. So it's just weird. I wouldn't take back the captaincy if I was Babar Azam, just because of how the board treated him.
Let's talk about that. Babar Azam offered the captaincy. We tweeted, Babar, don't do it. Stirred a little buzz, lots of retweets. People commented. Why shouldn't have Babar done it?
I think I thought that because Shaheen was entrusted to be captain, that he should at least get the chance to captain till the World Cup. One of the legacies of Babar Azam was how wholesome the team was, how much unity there was within all the players. And if you look at what's transpired within the past few days, there's now 4 potential captains within your playing 11. Now, what does that do to team chemistry? What does that do to Pakistan's history of grouping and politics and backstabbing each other for captaincy? And the captains that I'm mentioning are Babar himself, Shaheen Afridi, Rizwan, and Shadab, who was the vice captain when Babar was initially captain. Now, all 4 of these guys are in the team. I'm sure there's factions. I'm sure the team is divided on who and how the team is going to be led. And just with respect to the continued wholesomeness that may occur, Imad Wasim and Babar Azam are back in the Imad Wasim and Muhammad Amir are back in the team, both who on live national television said that Babar should not be T20 captain. Now they have to play under Babar's captaincy. How does Babar deal with that? How does Babar deal with the fact that the team is sort of looking at him as a leader, as someone who can lead them to the next T20 World Cup and the Champions Trophy? Because I'm sure Babar's deal consisted of him leading Pakistan in those 2 tournaments. And I just think Babar Azam has an incredible opportunity to either win the next 2 tournaments, the T20 World Cup and the Champions Trophy in Pakistan, and make this the greatest comeback in Pakistan cricket history, or even cricket history.
Since Imran Khan, actually.
Or
Because Imran Khan was similarly dealt with. He retired in 87 and was pulled back, given captaincy, in 92 he won the World Cup.
Or if Babar loses these tournaments back to back within the span of 8 months, he could continue to dig a deeper hole for himself.
So this is why we thought that Babar should not take captaincy back. It's too much of a risk. You've already moved on. You're a world-class player. Your position at number 3 on the ODI as an opener will always be there. There's no harm in you taking a step back. We thought that if he took the captaincy back, it would be detrimental, correct?
And also his batting performances in the last few tournaments has been abysmal. So it could be the captaincy pressure getting the best of him when these big tournaments come.
For sure. That was our position, and that's why we didn't want him. Now, do you want to talk about how Babar accepted the captaincy? There was a genuine negotiation in place between the management and Babar Azam. Babar had rules in place. Babar had, he wanted certain things in order before he said yes. When was the last time we saw a player with this kind of power to wield his decision left or right based on what he wanted?
Maybe Shaheen Afridi.
That was probably the last captain that I think that had that kind of power. And before Shaheen Afridi,
maybe Yunus Khan.
Did he have that kind of power? Because there was a mutiny against him.
Well,
he should have been 2007 T20 World Cup captain.
Yunus had enough power that he played the team he wanted to play. So at least he has as much power that he could make decisions as to who's playing and who's not playing. I remember Mohammad Amir spoke on the same channel that he wasn't initially part of the 2009 T20 World Cup squad. But Yunus Khan fought for him with selectors that he wants Mohammad Amir in Pakistan's team. And eventually he got him.
So that's probably the last time. Afridi, then Yunus Khan, and then I don't even remember who. Inzamam was a pretty chill captain. I don't think there was any mutiny against Imran Khan. Oh, sorry, Inzamam.
Minus Bob Wilmer dying.
Yeah, rest in peace. So it's been a long time since we've seen a captain wield that kind of power. Did you think him positioning himself and getting what he wanted, the way that he got the stuff that he wanted, just putting down demands and hoping the PCB says yes, do you think that was okay? I don't want to use the word ethical, but do you think that was okay?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair for Babar to ask for that sort of surety. Like you mentioned, there's lots of insecurities in the PCB and the Pakistan team. And what bothers me is Zaka Ashraf removed Babar Azam. He brought in Shaheen Afridi. And then Mohsin Naqvi removed Shaheen Afridi and brought back Babar Azam. Let's say Mohsin Naqvi gets replaced by Chairman X. Will he then remove Babar Azam and bring another captain? Like, this is the sense of insecurity and volatility that is called the Pakistan Cricket Board. So for Babar to ask for that surety, I think it's totally fair. And I think Babar is fully aware of what could transpire with him taking the captaincy back. He knows the amount of criticism and hate he might get for Pakistan not performing well in the next two tournaments. But I also feel like Babar Azam understands the opportunity he has here. Because it's, in a way, if you look at it from a different point of view, this is also very selfless of Babar Azam to take back the captaincy and be under fire, face the media, get this team together, and get them ready for the next T20 World Cup. Because if they win that World Cup, Champions Trophy, Babar Azam could redeem himself as the Dark Knight that we wanted.
Oh, good full circle one from the quote that we have. I want to read something that Temur Khan from our Patreon said, because I put on the Patreon last night. Thoughts on Babar back as captain for our emergency pod tonight. Temur Khan says, without considering the knock-on effects, I'm so happy Babar is back as captain. I don't think anyone else was capable of leading the team except maybe Rizwan. However, when looking at the wider picture, I don't see it all becoming smooth sailing. I think Shaheen has been unfairly treated, and it's quite a morale blower to remove someone as a captain after one series. I really hope this doesn't affect the team dynamic and causing stress, cause dressing room tension. If the PCB have facilitated this change, I want to see their full resourceful and moral support for Babar. They now have the utmost responsibility to protect him from agenda mafias and treat him as though he is the captain of Pakistan with the respect he deserves. I echo Taimur's sentiments here. I think if the full switch has happened, there has to be surety, there has to be clarity, there has to be clear picture of what the next 12 months of Pakistan cricket will look like. The start is bad, man. The start is bad. It gets worse when you look into the news that has transpired today. PCB and Shaheen Afridi hold crisis talks after statement furore. Or furor. I don't know what the and Daniel Rasool with a crazy title. Daniel, insane, bro. It is understood that outgoing Pakistan captain Afridi did not contribute anything to all the quotes that PCB put out in his name on returning captain. Thoughts, Bajar?
Nothing new from the BCB. They have this habit of not communicating with the players. And I think what's happened here is that they put out a statement from Shaheen Afridi that wasn't by Shaheen Afridi. So Shaheen is looking at these quotes. He's like, I never said that. And I think there was a point where Shaheen wanted to put out an official statement. And this emergency meeting happened right before that to stop him from doing such things. And again, this is what's causing beef in the team, could cause groups. And it's up to Babar Azam and the chairman to see how they can collectively put this team together. Now, there's a comment here by Sajjad Malik, and he shares his thoughts on Babar's return as captain. He says, Babar being named captain doesn't make sense for a plethora of reasons. And Sajjad Malik states 5 reasons. The first one being, Babar is tactically flawed as a captain. Secondly, Babar is known to show favoritism in the team. Thirdly, he says, Babar is incapable of being flexible. Number 4, he says, Babar has a personal milestone-focused mentality. And number 5, he says, Babar Azam has no charisma. I think I'm going to disagree with you, Sajjad, on the charisma part. I've been to stadiums where Babar Azam has walked into bat, and it's just Babar, Babar, Babar being chanted by 30,000 people. If you haven't seen Babar's knock against Islamabad United in the PSL, you'll see how fitting that was for Babar to be chanted, Babar's name to be chanted by his home crowd. So there's a debate on the 4 points you mentioned before, but number 5, Babar does have charisma.
So, John, I gotta give it to you. I don't know if the Patreon fam can go out and read his comments, but he literally wrote a whole essay, and I respect that kind of passion. If somebody sits down and writes a 500-word paragraph and puts it in the comment section, you know that they mean business. So, shout out to Sajjad Malik for that. I just went through some press releases that just came out today. I don't know how true they are anymore. Babar Azam via the PCB says, it was a pleasure to play under Shaheen's leadership in the recent T20I series. He's still young and is improving as a player and as a leader every day. As a captain, I have always valued his input, and I will keep consulting him for important decisions going forward. We must take advantage of his strategic understanding of the game. Our joint aim is to make this team the best in the world. Now, this was not refuted by Babar Azam, but I believe this statement from Shaheen Afridi was not given by Shaheen Afridi. Is that true?
Correct.
Can I read it?
Yes.
It was an absolute honor to captain the Pakistan national cricket team. I will always cherish the memories and the opportunity. As a team player, it is my duty to back our captain, Babar Azam. I have played under his captaincy and have nothing but respect for him. I will try to help him on and off the field. We are all one. Our aim is the same to help some Pakistan become the best team in the world. I feel like the same intern who wrote Babar Azam's uh a press release wrote Shaheen's press release because the verbiage and the tone is exactly the same. The PCB at least have two interns writing two different press releases. That way, it's a little bit more varied.
I think we should look ahead. Babar is now captain. And I think the one thing I want to mention here is that if I don't agree with Babar being captain again, I will make that vocal through my tweets, through this podcast. And I think it's such that if you're criticizing Babar, you're anti Babar. If we say Shaheen's didn't do his rehab properly, he didn't do his return to fitness properly, or if his pace is down, or if his line length is not right, we are suddenly anti the Holcomb. There's anti Shaheen Afridi. If we say Shadab is a good captain tactically, he won the PSL, we are suddenly on Islamabad United's payroll. So it's as if that we cannot please the masses. And I think I've decided I'm not going to go out there to do that. And secondly, I've also tried to like emotionally detach myself from the Pakistan cricket news, because if you delve too much deep into it, it can take a toll on you. And so I'm like sort of trying to take this as just regular news. Cricket's happening. It's a fun game. We want Pakistan to win, but obviously shit's going on at the PCB.
This is what Bashar does. Bashar does the tweet and dip. So he tweets and then he dips.
Yeah, I have notifications off for all social media platforms.
Smart, me too.
So I don't check what the comments say. I don't check what the replies say. This is my opinion. This podcast was started because we wanted to be honest and transparent and share what we think. And we will never be on anyone's agenda. So that's just, I wanted to make that clear on the podcast itself.
Mazhar Arshad tweeted today, another problem with Pakistan's cricket culture is that every opinion is taken as agenda. And I retweeted that from our podcast, that story of our podcast. I don't think cricket fans in Pakistan are there yet where they can handle disagreement properly. I will come out and say that I love Babar Azam. I think he is Pakistan's finest batsman. I think he's Pakistan's greatest batsman. There is nothing wrong with admitting that. And that's just my opinion. But my opinion is always that his captaincy was average to above average. There were glaring mistakes he needed to work on. He either took too much time to work on them or just didn't address them at all. And that did cost Pakistan a few chips. That's just facts. Now, like you said, we have to move forward, because if we keep dwelling into the past, there's so much just in Urdu we say kachra that just keeps coming out. When you pull on one string and it just keeps coming in like a clown's sleeve, that there's no way to find the end of that. Moving forward, the situation now becomes Babar Azam is the white ball captain. So that's captain, that's a designation that Shaheen Afridi had for 15 minutes on social media. Babar gets to keep it at least till the next Champions Trophy, which is at home in Pakistan, allegedly, so far. He is white ball captain. The biggest tournament that's coming this year is the T20 World Cup in June. Pakistan has 12 T20Is before that, 5 against New Zealand at home, which I would be surprised if Babar bottles those. Like, I would be genuinely surprised. He loves playing against New Zealand at home. He has a great record against them in ODIs and T20s. I think that's going to be an easy comeback session for Babar Azam. I don't even know if they're sending a full squad again. I know Kane Williamson is at the IPL. He's not coming to Pakistan. So 5 T20Is in Pakistan. Babar's going to be captain. Will we see more of what we saw prior to November 2023, or will we see a new and improved Babar Azam? That's what I want to know.
I think in the PSL we saw a Babar Azam 2.0, and I want to see the same Babar Azam in the Pakistan team. Looking ahead, I'm just thinking about the opportunity that Pakistan has, right? Here's what I want. I want Babar to collect this team together, have them unite towards one goal, which is to win the next T20 World Cup. I want Babar to put his differences aside with Imad and Amir. And that's exactly what Babar's dad posted on Instagram as well. He wanted Babar to actually go and talk to Imad, Amir, settle things, be respectful, and have them united towards that goal of winning the World Cup. Now, Pakistan has the resources, if used properly, to win the World Cup. Now, it's up to Babar whether he uses those resources properly, his openers, his mid-loaders, his death-over bowlers, his all-rounders, and he puts them in right positions where they can perform at their best. Now, Babar having captains for so many big tournaments, the margin for error for him is less now than it was before. Because now Babar is not learning. Babar has learned. He's learned on the job. Now he is experienced.
So he's learned on the job, he's taken time to reflect, and now he's back. Now, this Babar Azam that comes in should be the best Babar Azam that we've ever seen. He's peaked. Well, it's not peaked. He's peaking. He's right at the crescendo, or like the top turf, and he's like sort of riding that wave at the top of his skills, right? He's improved his T20 game. He's improved his captaincy in T20. That's what we saw in the PSL. With the less than great team, he was able to make qualifiers too. Great. I just want to see Babar come out and actually give us 100%. You know, make mistakes, learn from it. You know, whatever he's done in the past, I want that to be not repeated. I want that to be forgotten, and I want him to make either a new mistakes or just give me a perfect Pakistan cricket team game. You know, and that means that if you trust Saim Ayub in Peshawar Zalmi opening with you, then you have to trust Saim Ayub wearing the greens opening with you. If that means that your best friend Rizwan has to cut some corners, go down a few notches, then you do that for Pakistan. Because it's over. Like I want him to be ruthless is what I'm trying to say. Like I want him to be everything that I said about his, fire in his eyes, and I get trolled about that a lot on social media. I genuinely want to see that. I don't know if that's there yet. I want to see this Pakistan cricket team banded together. I want him to come out. I want a 45-minute presser from Babar Azam, right? I want him to squash all the beef on national TV. I want him to settle down his fans, like relax, guys. We're all in this together. I love Shaheen. I love Imad. I love Amir. We're gonna win this T20 World Cup together. I want that clear messaging, not only through his actions, through the pressers, through the PCB statements, and I want him to tell Mohsin Naqvi to calm down. Like, no chairman interference for the next 6 months, right? Trust your staff, Babar Azam. Trust your people who are assigned roles that are there to help you, including selectors, including management, coaching staff, team managers, physios, whoever it is, whatever it is. Trust them. Let them make the decisions that you may not be able to make. Let's go ahead and win a chip.
Let's get it. I think that's a great way to end this episode. Looking forward to what Babar Azam and team can do. I really want Babar to come back, be a World Cup winning captain, lead Pakistan to glory. He has 2 trophies coming up in the next 12 months, and there's no reason why Pakistan should not be in the playoffs, at least, or win these tournaments. So wishing Babar nothing but the best. I want him to see him back, scoring runs, high strike rate, get the best out of your players, and be the leader that you are supposed to be, you're destined to be for Pakistan.
I totally agree. I think the next 12 T20Is for Pakistan are going to be crucial. I want to see a combination that is, it's fluent, it's fluid. I want to see a 11 that is malleable, that is strong at the same time, that strength, it's in its core. And I want to see Pakistan go out there and fight till the last ball. You know what? This is what I liked about the 2022 World Cup that Pakistan lost in the finals. Up until the finals, there was a fight. They lost against Zimbabwe. They came back. They beat Bangladesh. They beat South Africa. They beat who did they beat in the
New Zealand
in the semis? They beat New Zealand in the semis. They came and they wanted to get as close as possible as they could with the team that they had. That's the sort of fight that I want. That's the drive I want. But this time, I want Pakistan to finish because they have capability of finishing this off. And with this, I think we tried our best to dissect the whole the psychosis of what led to Babar Azam leaving as captain, the decisions involved in the middle for Babar Azam's return as captain, how Shaheen Afridi must have felt. And just before we go, I have one question for you. Shaheen's record as captain is 1 win, 4 losses. In a world where that's switched, it's 4 wins, 1 loss. Do we ever have this conversation? Do we ever do this podcast?
Likely not. Likely not. That's just how short-term Pakistan's cricket's thinking is and their memory is. So 1 bad series and then 1 bad PSL, Shaheen's captaincy's gone.
Will we ever see Shaheen back as captain?
I think what also needs to be done here is Pakistan needs to announce a vice captain, a clear successor to Babar Azam's captaincy. Now, Shadab Khan was the vice captain of Pakistan during Babar Azam's tenure, and I thought he was the clear captaincy option. But Shadab's personal performances weren't supportive of him being in the team, let alone him being captain. Plus, all of his injuries didn't help him either. So, whether it be Rizwan, whether it be Shaheen, whether it be Shadab, there needs to be a clear vice captain announced, and they need to follow through with the vice captaincy as well.
You heard it from Backward Point here. Thank you guys so much for sending in your comments and collections at the Patreon. I really respect everything. We read through that. We talked about that through and through here. We mentioned a few on the, obviously, we couldn't mention all of them, but thank you very much for saying that. The Backward Point Discord fam has been extremely active, lots of opinions, lots of emotions there. And everyone's been very respectful, with, laying down their points and their emotions. And again, we respect that. We need that sort of discourse in the cricketing community that is not toxic, that is not pointing fingers, but actually just having conversations. So backward fan,
I was actually talking to somebody on the Discord chat.
Yeah.
I think Malik Saab, and like we were debating on Pakistan's openers, middle orders, and he messages me. He says, "Okay, I'm sorry if I offended you, but I just wanted to respectfully, have a chat." I was like, "Bro, I'm not offended. I'm trying to have a good, healthy conversation in a respectful manner without abusing you on cricket, on Pakistan cricket, learning from your opinions, and hopefully me getting my point across to you." So that's the community that we want to build on Discord, and it's free to join. I encourage you to join. It's absolutely for free, and there's different channels. You can have live commentary. We have PCT therapy when
We have
Pakistan
polls.
loses.
I love polls on the Discord community now. That's one of my favorite things. People can go in and their vote on multiple things. I think Gilsao is one of our mods who curates that. I love it. I think it's one of the fun things to do there. So definitely check that out. Bashar, you want to have any finishing thoughts?
Emoji of the day. I think
Oh boy,
since Bobsy the King is back, I was thinking the crown.
crown.
It has to be the crown. There is nothing but the crown for Babar Azam, Pakistan's king, Bobby Bacha. If you've made it this far into the podcast on Spotify, give us a rating, Apple Podcast, YouTube, subscribe if you haven't already.
And please let us know your thoughts in the comments below on YouTube. We really want to know what the public is thinking. Obviously, we read the pulse on Twitter, but our subscriber fan base is a little bit different. We want to know where people are leaning in. Please leave your comments below. We'd love to read them. We'll read as many of them as possible and reply to them as it comes. Babar Azam is Pakistan's captain again, and thus is the future for Pakistan, at least for the next 12 months. Our supports are, as always, with our Pakistan cricket team, with the captain, as they were with Shaheen. We supported him throughout. Now it's Babar's turn again. Is this the revenge arc? Is this the redemption arc? Time will tell, but you can expect Backward Point to be there to fully disclose our opinions and dissect what is going on in PCB. We urge the PCB to relax, calm down, give us a week, let us breathe. Sundays suck for us now. And you know what? Go watch The Dark Knight because it's an amazing movie. All right, Backward Point out.
Cheers.